Hello everyone, my name is Ulviyya and I'm a school psychologist at ADA School, and today I will be answering some questions that have been sent to me by our student council. And the first question is, what do you do in your spare time? It depends really. I don't think that I have any specific or extraordinary interests or hobbies. I listen to music, I watch movies, and I read books, and what differentiates me from others is the type of music that I prefer and the genre of the books that I read, my favorite directors. I really like baking actually, and I like to bake and try new recipes whenever I can. What else? Actually, since we have been in self-isolation, I realized how much time I used to spend on socializing, just meeting friends, meeting family, extended family, and I would spend at least a couple of hours every weekend on going somewhere, catching up with a friend to have a cup of coffee or something, and definitely has changed since we have been home. The next question is, what are you currently reading? I started reading this book that is called This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, who is, as of now, a comedian, public speaker. He's from England, but he actually used to be a doctor, which is an interesting combination already, in my opinion. And this book is basically his autobiography or diary, if you will, from the period of time when he was a doctor in training or a resident doctor under NHS, which is a British healthcare system. And in his book, he shares some of the clinical experiences that he had with patients, and some of those cases are really funny and amusing, and some of them are quite dark and sad. But it's an interesting book because you learn quite a lot about the world of doctors, and you start empathizing with them a little bit more. It sheds light on medicine and healthcare system from a slightly different angle, and it's an interesting book, and it has some humor in it, so I really appreciate it. The next question is, how is the time going for you in quarantine? It's going in waves, meaning that some days are better than others, some days are worse. But overall, I think I'm doing just fine. Of course, I miss being around people. I miss going to work. I miss normality in general. I miss going outside and going outside without worrying too much about it. But I'm just trying to focus on positivity. I'm trying to see some benefits of working from home. For example, I'm very aware that one of the benefits is that I have this spare couple of hours that I used to spend on commuting from home to work and vice versa, and sometimes even more than a couple of hours if the traffic jams were really bad. So I shouldn't take it for granted, and I guess I'm just trying to focus on the positive sides and find silver linings in this overall negative situation. The next question is, what were you like in high school? Academically or as a person? I think I was just a regular teenager. I don't think, academically speaking, I was a decent student. I didn't really have any problems with, grades. Not because, above average IQ or I was an outstanding student with outstanding results. It was mostly due to being responsible, and now when I think about it, also slightly anxious. And I think this combination of high level of responsibility and a dash of anxiety sort of pushed me through my entire high school. And as a person, I think I was just a regular teenager, more on the quiet side of the spectrum. I think I was pretty introverted and self-sufficient, but just regular teenager, I guess. The next question is, what is your dream destination? This is a difficult question because there are so many, but I really want to see the Northern Lights, and for that I have to go up north. So let's say Iceland, which is my dream destination anyway, or Norway. I really want to go to Tromsø, or let's say Finland. They have these igloos, which are basically glass huts or cabins in which you can stay overnight and view the northern lights. And it seems like such a beautiful experience, and I would love to have it one day. The next question is, do you like movies or books? Well, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I like both, but if I know that certain movie is based on a book, I will try and read it first, just to provoke my own imagination and let it run wild. And then it's very interesting to compare whatever your imagination produced, like how it perceived the characters and the settings, and compare it with the director's version. Sometimes books actually end up being better than the movie. Sometimes it's the opposite. It really depends. The next question is, if you were a city, which city would you be? That's a very interesting question. What city would I be? I think I wouldn't be a very large city because I'm very quiet and composed and reserved. So I think I would rather be a small city or a town, or a city with low population, that is kind of slow and people are not rushing anywhere, and it's kind of cold, so they prefer staying indoors most time. What city? I don't really know. Maybe some small town in Norway or Denmark or Ireland. I don't really know, but that's an interesting question. This question is, do you speak any other languages except English and Azerbaijani? Well, I speak Russian because I went to Russian school, and I also speak some Czech because I lived in the Czech Republic in Prague for about 2 years. The next question is, what's your favorite movie and book? It's very difficult to name just one, actually, because there are so many. I could name a few directors whose works I enjoy in general. For example, I really like Terry Gilliam's movies, let's say Monty Python. I really like Wes Anderson's movies. The last one I have watched is called The Isle of Dogs, which is it's an animated movie, but it's very powerful and also has a great soundtrack. I really like Tim Burton's movies and animated movies too. Pretty much all of them. I really like the visuals. In general, for me, it's very important that the visuals are, really striking. Recently, I have recommended this documentary to one of the students. It's called Cosmos: A Space-Time Odyssey. And it's a documentary in 10 or 15 episodes, I think. It's about, the exploration of the universe, Earth, and on top of it being very, very educational. I personally learned quite a lot. It's also very beautifully made. The graphics are absolutely gorgeous, and it's so captivating. You can't take your eyes off of it, and it actually made me a little bit emotional. That's how beautiful it was. In general, that's how I recognize and identify whether I liked the movie or a book, based on the emotions that it provoked, or whether it provoked any emotions at all, especially when it comes to fiction books. Recently, let's say in the last 2 or 3 years, I haven't been reading as much fiction as I wish because of time constraints, unfortunately. Because when you have a limited amount of time and you have to choose between reading professional literature, educational, academic literature, and fiction purely for your enjoyment, you sort of have to prioritize. And lately I've been failing to prioritize in favor of fiction, but I'm trying to fix it. Recently I've been enjoying memoirs because they sort of have the combination of factors. They still have this educational aspect because you learn something, but also it can be very captivating. Some people's personal histories are so twisted and so complicated. it can be as thrilling as some bestseller novel. Actually, for example, this book that I have read recently, it's called Educated by Tara Westover. I have really enjoyed it, and Tara is a lady, a woman who was born into this super conservative Mormon family in Utah, I believe, and she was basically deprived of normal childhood. She didn't have birth certificate, she never went to hospital up until she was an adult, she didn't go to school, she was homeschooled, but in a very, very traditional way. But she somehow managed to, let's say, escape her household, and she pursued her education. She managed to graduate Cambridge. Her life views were very different than her family, and she basically, shares her timeline, her personal history in this book, and it's very, very interesting. And yeah, as I said, you learn something new, but it's also very captivating, so I would highly recommend. So the next question is, what were your best and worst subjects at school? I really liked biology, and I liked math, languages, Russian and English. I liked literature as well. And my worst subject was probably chemistry, because I didn't know it very well. It was okay in the beginning, but then something happened and I just must have missed on some very important essential layer of information, and I had some major knowledge gap that I was trying to follow up. But of course it was a big challenge, and it was in a way an educational moment for me, because I learned the hard way how important it is to be consistent in your learning process. You miss one module, two modules, and your learning process gets so interrupted that you don't really understand the new following topics anymore, and it's not as smooth as it should be. So yeah, I was struggling with chemistry a little bit, and another subject that I had some problems with was history, which is a pity, because I really like history and I understand its importance, but I had some minor problems with it too, partially because of the delivery, the teaching style in my school, in my class in particular, could have been better, and the materials, the textbooks that we had at the time, they definitely could have been better. But also the problem was in my approach and my attitude, because it's very difficult to explain, but I was almost learning it out of context, if it makes sense. It's like I was learning history of another race, another group of beings. I didn't really learn it so strongly in relation to our cultural heritage, because the importance of knowing history is in the fact that why we're here today is due to a number of events that happened 100 years ago, 200, 500 years ago, and there are precedents in the history, and it's very important to know them. And my approach was more facts-based, which was aligned with the teaching process and the demands that came with it, and the demands were facts-based. Learned this number of events in chronological order, which I was struggling to do, because there's no point in memorizing the name of some event and the date if you don't know why it happened and how it happened and what were the real consequences of it in a large picture, and what were the long-term consequences. So if I could go back in history and change my attitude towards learning something, I would change my attitude towards learning history. I would try to be more, detail oriented, especially when it comes to history of our country. I think it's very, very important. The next question is, what are your recommendations for students at the time of distant learning? My recommendation is, please try and stay as positive as possible. I know it's difficult, I know it can be emotionally overwhelming because, current situation is quite unusual. It's very strange. It's something that hasn't really happened in the living memory. Even the oldest members of our families are struggling to comprehend what is going on. But one thing I know for sure, and that's this is going to be over. The quarantine is going to be over and self-isolation is going to be over, and we will go back to our normal schedule very soon and to our normally paced life, and we will be around people again, and we just need to make sure that we leave this quarantine self-isolation bubble being as healthy as possible, and it also includes our mental health. This whole situation is going to turn into history, into a memory, but this mental health is going to stay with us, and we just need to make sure that we don't damage it with excessive negative thinking or unhealthy habits. Try to incorporate some self-care routine into your life. Of course, you know yourself better than anyone, and you know what makes you happy, what makes you calm, but just try to stick to healthier options. I really recommend trying to limit the amount of time you spend in front of computer or on your phone. Try to organize some, real life fun activities instead. Include your family members, include your siblings, organize a movie night, a game night, try to cook something together, start a creative project, do exercises, workout. There are so many things that you could do either alone or with your family members, and think about it as investment, investing into your mental health in order to ensure that you feel good in the future. And it's actually a win-win situation because you will also you will develop this bond with your family members that you maybe didn't have before, which is pretty good. Just as I said, try to think about the positives and try to focus on them. Start journaling maybe. This way you will be able to capture your feelings, your thoughts, and you can read them 5-10 years from now when you will be sharing this entire story with future generation. Start a gratitude journal. It can be very beneficial. Just take 5-10 minutes before going to bed to write down 3-5 things that you are grateful for today. It makes us appreciate our current situation more. There are very many ways to maintain our mental health and to support ourselves. Just be creative about them, and if you need help, don't hesitate to ask. I wish you guys luck, and I hope to see you very soon.